The genuine article looks beyond the label to save you money and guide you to value. On this edition, we meet the old-school Englishman who brought fantasy, romance and passion back to the bed and the bedroom. Inspired by the ornate designs that French royalty adored, Simon Horn makes hand-carved bed frames using centuries-old techniques. For a similar look, stores like Ralph Lauren offer well-designed reproductions. And for prices you won't lose sleep over, we check out the chains and their bargains. Later, we'll go to London's most reputable chairmaker, favoured by royalty and the rich, but accessible to all.
The English invented the modern bed in 1490. It was called the Great Bed of Ware. And ever since, English bed making has been considered some of the finest in the world. But the last 100 years, modern life has made the bed not as important as it once was, until an English gentleman by the name of Simon Horn decided to turn his love of craftsmanship, comfort and design into something we like to call the genuine article. You see, beds were important because nobody had them until recently. Only royalty could afford the kind of workmanship that went into a grand bed. In fact, Louis XIV of France conducted court in bed. He owned 413 of them.
In fact, this bed is an exact copy of his wife, Marie Antoinette's favourite bed. What Simon Horn has done is to rediscover the importance and appreciation of beds. Modern design has made them comfortable and functional, but Simon wanted to put personality back under the pillows.
Simon bedding, pay attention to those little details, and the fact that you can choose from a really, beautiful walnut wood to a rose wood, and the fact that they don't use veneers, they use solid pieces of wood. Those are all really important things to keep in mind when buying a bed because they matter, and they matter when it comes to quality.
Simon was a successful commodities broker with a window office in London, until his partner put some old furniture in that window to dress it up. When someone walked in and bought it for £4,000, Horn realised he was more interested in furniture than pork bellies. But he discovered that all the hand-carved French bed frames that he loved were either too small or too narrow for his 20th century 6-foot frame. So he decided to do something about it.
You're the man who's credited in England and now throughout Europe and the rest of the world of celebrating the great beds and bringing back not only the design but the craftsmanship that made them so.
I certainly try to do that. Whether I've totally succeeded or not is not for me to judge, but I think I've helped quite a bit. Up until relatively recently, this room was almost disregarded because we were rather ashamed of it.
It's the forgotten room that's now been discovered.
It was a forgotten room. It was a sort of private room, and it had a divan and a mattress and maybe a padded headboard, but nothing particularly interesting in that room anyway.
Being inside Simon's warehouse is a little like a visit to a museum with a distribution centre attached. You've got empire beds, you've got this beautiful Venetian bed, and they've all come here from around the world, built in places decided because of either the availability of beautiful timber or the skills of the craftsmen in that region.
Wherever you go, whatever part of the world, there are not enormous numbers of carvers to carve to European standards. It took us about 2 to 2.5 years to get people doing it to our standards.
Many of Simon's beds are constructed by the finest woodworkers in Europe. In France, he uses the skill of men from the Burgundy region, who uses centuries-old wood-turning techniques to ensure the challenge of time and the ravages of daily life are met.
What makes the Simon Horn bed so sturdy? It's the joints. There you are. You fasten them with a pin. It's that wooden peg. Once it's there, it won't come out again. But also what is important, it's the joints. The longer it is, the better. And this is why with the Louis Philippe style, we've got a fairly wide joint, and the sides here have got the boat shape.
Simon's love of great beds is shown in his restoration area that he keeps inside his London workshop.
So Simon, what is Michael doing right now?
Michael is one of our main restorers. At the moment, he's putting on gesso onto this Louis XV side piece. And if you're going to gild something, you need an enormously smooth surface.
So all the gold adheres to the flat surface.
Gold adheres to it. There are no little lumps and bumps in it.
Michael, do you ever feel sort of chuffed that you're working the same way they did 200 and odd years ago?
Oh, most definitely. It's a traditional method that hasn't changed for hundreds of years, and yes, I enjoy it. It's
you can go
making
to
a bit of history.
Sorry?
Making a bit of history.
You are. Simon's love of history heavily influences his design. For example, the canopied English four-poster bed is actually based on very good reason.
You had no glazing bars on the windows. You had curtains to keep you warm. You also probably a lot of other people sleeping in your bedroom as well.
But American four-posters tend not to have a roof.
They don't, because by the time you started making four-posters over there, buildings were vastly better created. And so you had these beds which finished about here, just with a finial, as purely as decoration. But the initial purpose was no longer necessary.
So that's the practical side of things. But beds also have their more whimsical uses.
Funny enough, this particular design, the original one which I've copied, was about that wide. It was a day bed, i.e. both ends were the same height.
Is that what a day bed is?
A day bed is
It's an after-lunch nap bed.
After lunch or
good life.
other purposes. Well, I mean, you rest on it or whatever you feel like, really, after lunch or at other times of the day, to read a book, or it might be to do anything else, which is a mind.
I think we get you.
Got, okay.
Okay.
Well, from British understatement to French flair.
One thing I would say about this is it's a bit over the top. Some people might say it's too decorative for their taste. It's got an immense amount of carving in it. Well, that's hand caning. It's just been knitted onto the piece, and this is waxed rosewood.
It's also a fantasy. This is a fantasy.
And a fantasy.
This is another world.
It's another world.
This is how a wife may see herself as Marie Antoinette.
Yes, the new ones which we make will have Marie Antoinette's monogram on the end instead of that bit of carving there.
So in a sense, what you're doing is creating the most intimate playground fantasy. And the beds people choose really reveals how they'd like to see themselves.
Yes. It's another world they want to escape to.
Right.
I think it's a dream world, a romantic world, and it doesn't look like their rather modern office, which they left 2 or 3 hours before.
When we return, the recreation of the greatest bed ever made.